hereditary.
Yeah.
Does he need the permission of the parish priest?
No, because the local is told, no, local ordinary can celebrate any marriage in the diocese. Any marriage in the diocese. But he will inform him out of courtesy. But then he doesn't need his delegation. If he doesn't inform, the marriage does not become invalid. Because both parish priest also have power, bishop also has power, another delegated priest also has power, all three should not fight. Normally when higher authority is there, the lower authority must yield. But suppose parish priest and who is there? Bishop are there in the presbytery. The deacon blessed the marriage because parish priest gave him delegation. This marriage will be valid. When they come, already marriage over. They cannot once again bless the marriage. They cannot once again bless the marriage. So all have power. One who has power, one who begins will have. Deacon has delegated power. He doesn't have power on his own.
Because we are taught that in the parish priest has the authority.
In the diocese is the authority. Then, if in every parish priest has the authority, what is the power of the bishop? If it is retired bishop, he doesn't have power. Retired bishop, he doesn't have power. Bishop of another diocese doesn't have power in this diocese. If you are taught like that, it is wrong. You tell Father told like this, very clear. So no parish priest can exclude the bishop from his parish.
Auxiliary bishops.
Auxiliary bishops, they do not have the power of the diocesan bishops. The canon says that auxiliary bishop must be appointed VG or at least episcopal vicar. So in this category, they will become automatically local ordinary. Thank you for asking that question. So auxiliary bishop will be local ordinary, not because he is bishop, but because as soon as he is ordained, consecrated, he will be appointed either VG or at least episcopal vicar. Episcopal vicar.
The retired bishops do
Yeah.
require delegation.
Yes, for marriage. For marriage. Suppose without delegation he gives confirmation, it is valid. But for marriage, he needs delegation. Now, for example, Archbishop Bernard Morris wants to bless any marriage. Either he needs delegation from the bishop or VG Episcopal Vicar or from the parish priest.
In the diocese, anybody can give. Means the local ordinary or the parish priest.
Yeah, they can give the delegation. Normally they will go ask from the parish priest only because the parish priest must know that he has received delegation if he comes here. Okay, very good. Then I said in the Latin church deacon can bless marriage. Now one is Syro-Malabar, another is Latin. Syro-Malabar, another is Latin. Boy is Syro-Malabar, girl is Latin. So, can the deacon bless the marriage?
The marriage is Syro-Malabar.
The right matters. The right matters. Which right marriage?
No, it is in the Latin church. The girl celebrates the marriage in the Latin church. Parish priest is Latin.
If the consent of the girl, boy is Syro-Malabar.
Yeah. No, I am asking about the priest officiating.
It's valid.
Valid.
Both are baptized and it is valid. It's in the.
How do they get the power?
The Syro-Malabar has to get the consent from
Consent
the parish priest and give it.
No. Priest gets power from where? The deacon I am saying.
From the priest.
Parish priest. Can the parish priest ask the deacon, Latin deacon or Syro-Malabar deacon, to bless the marriage?
cannot ask
Given one of them.
he cannot ask the Siromalabar deacon to officiate the marriage.
Why? With Latin deacon, one of them is Siromalabar.
But still,
But
in
marriage
The
is being
ceremony
made in
is
the
a
Latin church.
only in the writing church we said that the deacons can bless
bless
the
the
marriage.
If the ceremony is in Latin, the deacon can bless.
Bless.
So there are two Siromalabar couple, I mean boy and girl, bridegroom and bride. Can I bless the marriage, their marriage?
There-
Can I bless the marriage?
Unless you got the written consent from their parish priest.
Why do you say use the word consent? I am not married.
No, because they are
You should use the word delegation. I don't have power because I am a professor. I have power only because delegation from the Siromalabar parish priest where it is celebrated. Delegation. So, can the Siromalabar parish priest who gives delegation to me, can he give delegation to the deacon?
Of which like
Both right. A Siromalabar deacon.
no, because Siromalabar deacons are not supposed to.
Okay, Latin deacon.
Yes.
we do not know.
When they are Siromalabar, no?
But we don't know which right they get
Since the
married.
delegation.
Right, don't forget about the right. Right is immaterial here.
The delegation is given and the deacon is an ordained minister, it is possible.
No, that's what I said. In the Siromalabar and in all the Oriental churches, priest is essential for validity. So when two Siromalabar are marrying, no question of deacon coming into the picture.
No, but the church, when the church, I want to ask, if the church is Latin, the ceremony is Latin in that case.
No, church and all, it doesn't depend on who are marrying, getting married, that is the most important thing. I said church or in the street, who are marrying? Again, don't make the mistake. Those who are marrying, both are Siromalabar, means only the priest. Whether Latin priest or that priest. If it is Latin priest, he needs delegation. Delegation from the Siromalabar parish priest. You understand?
Yes.
Latin priest means Siromalabar. So you should not have any doubt at all. When both are Siromalabar. You should not have any doubt.
What is full on the Latin combination?
No, we are speaking about now marriage. Yeah. So any priest, what is important is any priest with the necessary delegation can bless the marriage of two Orientals, two Siromalabar or anybody.
Even Latin priest also.
That's what we, so far I said, no, I am a Latin priest, I can bless the marriage of two Siromalabar, but what I need is delegation.
Whether if one is Siromalabar and the other one is a Latin.
That's our next question. When one is Siromalabar, the other is Latin. So, can that Siromalabar parish priest or the Latin parish priest give delegation to a deacon? If one is Siromalabar. So, sometimes they may be in the Siromalabar church, the marriage may be in the Siromalabar church, or sometimes they both the parish priests have power. Because one party belongs to them, both parish priests have power. Both parish priests have power. Siromalabar parish priest also has power, this priest also, Latin parish priest also has power. Now my question is, when one is Siromalabar, one is Latin, can the deacon come into the picture? The deacon is brother of the bridegroom or brother of the bride. Can they celebrate? Can they be the officiating minister at the time of marriage? So far they said, if it is in the Latin church, the Latin parish priest can ask because the law of the place prevails, like that they said. If it is there, means that priest cannot allow the deacon because their law is that now the church 2 years ago changed the law. Even if one is Siromalabar, deacon should not be allowed. Deacon should not be allowed. Not only when both are Sira-Malabar, even if one is Sira-Malabar, a deacon cannot bless that marriage. Be clear about it. Law is emphatic. Before 2 years, each one was saying their own opinion. Because one is Latin, no. In the Latin church, deacon can bless, no. So we can, no. Now, in order to respect the Oriental tradition, the Holy Father has changed the law. Present law, Canon 1108 has been changed. That only the priest, whenever even one party is Oriental, only a priest can bless that marriage.
Father, that the bride, if she belongs to the Sira-Malabar, right, after marriage, to which right she will be belonging?
They can retain their own right, or the law gives freedom to change the right. The Oriental law does not give freedom to the men to change the right, but both the Latin and Oriental give the women freedom. Suppose a Latin man wants to change to the right of the Oriental woman, he is allowed. But Oriental, the Eastern Church does not allow during marriage to change to the right. Canon 111 speaks about it. 111. Latin Church gives freedom to both parties to change their right at the time of the marriage to the right of the other spouse. But Oriental law allows only the women to change the right, if at all.
In the practical sense, I have asked that question of whether a Latin priest can officiate the marriage of the Eastern rite.
Yeah.
In practical sense, does like these things anywhere happen?
Yeah, always. It happens often. See, the other way it happens, For example, so many Sira-Malabar are officiating at the Latin marriage. If that is possible, this is also possible. Only then they should know how to ask question. Possible. See, in Bangalore, for example, many Latin marriages are blessed by Sira-Malabar priests. If that is possible, this should also be possible. What is that? Only that you should know the language if it is in Malayalam, and then know to celebrate the Mass, whatever it may be. At least even if you don't know to celebrate Mass, the marriage ceremony you should know to read and then properly ask the question. That's all. Why you have a big doubt regarding that? It is surprising to me.
Because now I have also
You have not seen.
Yeah, I have not also heard about that. Because I have seen that.
What is important is you should be a Catholic priest. Catholic priest. The Latin Church, Catholic deacon also can bless the marriage. But now the law is very clear. If one of them is Oriental, then the deacon should not come into the picture. Okay.
There won't be any problem for a Latin priest to celebrating the Oriental rite mass for the wedding.
No problem. If the parish priest allows, only you can.
No, otherwise suppose if parish priest allow, otherwise there is no problem. But Oriental priest no.
Latin priest no. One thing is, everybody should celebrate Mass in their own right. Each one should celebrate Mass in the Oriental, their own right. So many of the MSFS fathers are celebrating Latin Mass. When they go to their own diocese, you can celebrate Oriental Mass, provided you know to celebrate. Suppose a Latin Malayali goes there to celebrate Oriental Mass, you need permission from there. Why you need permission? You have to keep the hand like this, he doesn't know, he will keep like this. So, in order to ensure that you know the right, celebrating Latin Mass may be much easier, and in principle they have to get permission from Bangalore Bishop, the Orientals, though without permission they are doing. Both sides they should get the permission. If you are celebrating in a new rite in which you are not trained, the competent authority must ensure that you know to celebrate the right. All the gestures, reading the prayers and all. If I know perfectly, well then can I celebrate Siro Malabar Mass if I know good Malayalam, read and all the ceremonies with due permission from the bishop? That is also for lawfulness, not for validity. Lawfulness to keep discipline. Like that only one who is all along celebrating Siro Malabar Mass, suddenly Latin Mass, making this and that. So they should get permission. But many of them don't get permission. That is unlawful. Normally they should get permission in celebrating in another rite. But for validity it should be a priest. Yeah. Okay. This is outside. We will come to that again. The next one. What is the, I said about it started with covenant. Marriage is called now covenant, the biblical model. More spiritual, more permanent. So this was not used in the old code. Old code it was contract. The word covenant especially is influenced by biblical model which is affirmed in Gaudium et Spes. The Vatican document Gaudium et Spes on marriage speaks about it. And then the marriage covenant is raised by Christ the Lord. But contract is not eliminated. Even now the word covenant is used only in 3 canons. Contract about 42 times the contract is used, or contractual meaning comes in the canon. So somewhat interchangeably they have used the canon, but new word covenant must tell us about the spirituality of the marriage, permanency of the marriage, sacredness of the marriage, rather than exchange of rights and obligations. So you should remember that contract. The first paragraph uses covenant, second paragraph uses contract. Again comes back to the old code, because contract is more practical, but covenant is more spiritual, permanence. All that is emphasized in that. So contract, marriage is a covenant contract. Then another thing it is said in this particular canon is, what is marriage? Through marriage they establish consortium means partnership. Marriage is a partnership. Consortium, Thosius vitae, of the whole life. Marriage is a partnership of the whole life. Marriage is the partnership of the whole life. Some people say also not only whole life, whole of life. Whole of life. Hereafter no I, hereafter we. They share in everything. No part time. They are 24 hours husband and wife. So partnership of the whole life. Marriage is the partnership. There is spiritual, emotional bonding, physical bonding, social bonding. So partnership, they share with each other for the whole life. Then the first canon speaks about the ends of marriage. What is the purpose of marriage? What is called as the ends of marriage? That is also mentioned in the canon. In the old code, there were primary end and secondary end. Now, all ends are primary, all are secondary. There is no such a distinction. Now, what are the ends of marriage as mentioned in the canon? Well-being of the spouses. Of their spouses for their good. Why do they marry? Because it is not good for man to be alone. So it is for their mutual welfare, mutual good. Mutual good. I am for his welfare, he is for my welfare. So, mutual welfare. In this well-being is that you cannot be selfish. You cannot marry somebody in order to persecute the person, to take vengeance on the person. That is not the purpose of the marriage. Well-being of the spouse. The next one is procreation and education of children. They are put together always. Procreation and education of children. Procreation and education of children. So, well-being of the spouses, procreation and education of children. If this is excluded, then the consent will be invalid. Suppose somebody says, I will marry, but I don't want to have children at all. But by mutual consent, they can postpone having children, but then excluding children. I will give birth to children, I will not educate them. I am marrying only to beat the person, only to torment the person lifelong. So, if it is proved before marriage itself, her father ill-treated me, so I will marry her to persecute her. If it is proved, the consent itself will be invalid. The purpose of marriage or the ends of marriage, motive of marriage, well-being of the spouses, and these three cannot be excluded by the people, by the persons marrying. So, now one of you read, can, yeah.
A man who has already lost his wife now wants to marry the second time.
Yeah.
And in his first marriage, he has found that he is important.
Yeah.
But when he tries to marry the second time, his wife is aware of his importance, but still both agree and have a consent to get married. So in that case, will it be a problem?
It will be invalid marriage, because it must be open to that, even if they agree like that.
No,
Impotency.
Importance is due to the health issues.
Yeah.
So still the marriage.
Yeah, knowingly that a party is important, you should not bless the marriage.
But both are, the lady is okay.
No, that is not enough. Impotency is a natural law impediment. We will come to that impediment later. So now let us look at the canon. If you don't understand any word, we will see, because the first canon is very important. I read once again, see that the marriage covenant by which a man and woman, we said what is covenant, and then secondly it is man and woman, not woman and woman, man and man, establish between themselves a partnership of their whole life, not with somebody else, but between themselves a partnership of their whole life. Consortium socius vitae. Partnership. We should not exclude. I am only part-time husband, part-time wife. No. Partnership of their whole life. And which of its own very nature, the very purpose of its own very nature is ordered, is intended to the well-being of the spouses, one thing, and also to the procreation and the upbringing of children, education of children, has between the baptized been raised by Christ the Lord to the dignity of the sacrament. So it is raised as the sacrament. It's, the seventh sacrament. Christ the Lord has raised it to the dignity of the sacrament. So from this we have seen so many things. Especially the ends of marriage towards the end. What is validity, what is required for the validity of the marriage? All that we have seen. Is it clear? The first canon. So, para 2. Consequently, therefore, A valid marriage contract cannot exist between baptized person without its being by that very fact a sacrament. Yes. Every valid marriage between the baptized is a sacrament. Every valid marriage between the baptized is a sacrament. So we know from that. So here you just note the word valid marriage contract. The first paragraph, marriage covenant. So the lawgiver has used both interchangeably, but giving due importance to the new word covenant. For the non-baptized it may be merely contract, but for us it is also a covenant. It is also covenant. The significance of the term covenant you study in your Bible also. Okay, the Canon 1056. What are the properties of marriage? What are the properties of marriage? So, two are mainly the properties of marriage: unity and indissolubility. And they assume in Christian marriage sacramentality, distinctive firmness. The indissolubility assumes a distinctive firmness because of sacramentality. It is a sacrament. But two properties of marriage, we always speak about two properties: unity and indissolubility. What is the meaning of unity? One man, one woman. One woman, one man. Polygamy is excluded. That is, one man having many women. Polyandry excluded. One woman having many men. That is unity of marriage. Unity of marriage. Secondly, indissolubility. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. I spoke about three grades of indissolubility. Marriage of all human beings, natural marriages, as we call. Marriage of the baptized. Marriage of the baptized. Marriage of the baptized, which is consummated. In the last one, there is no exception at all. So nobody can do it. But in the non-sacramental marriages, in some cases, they can be dissolved. Non-sacramental marriages. And sacramental and consummated marriages, all non-consummated marriages, can also be dissolved by the Holy Father. By the Holy Father. So that is Canon 1056. The essential properties of marriage. I'll give you the notes regarding very elaborate treatment of that, and then you will see this also and other things for study. Now, as of now, you know what is unity and what is indissolubility. Unity, one man and one woman. That's all. Indissolubility, a marriage is permanent. The consent is irrevocable. That means the parties, the church does not recognize the power of the state to break the marriage, power of anybody to break the valid marriage. Parties themselves or their relatives cannot break the marriage. And even by mutual consent, they cannot break the marriage. Even by mutual consent. That's what indissolubility means. And only in the cases we mentioned, we say. Sometimes they can separate while the bond remains. That we will see later on for the sake of their life. Now 1057, very important canon. First paragraph speaks about how marriage is brought about, that is by consent. Second paragraph says what is consent. First paragraph, how marriage is brought about. A marriage is brought into being by the lawfully manifested consent of the person who are legally capable. Who are legally capable. So, in other words, marriage is constituted only by the consent, and this consent must be lawfully manifested. So in Latin they speak about matrimonio in fieri, how marriage is brought about. Second part is matrimonio in factum esse, how marriage is lived. That is different. Marriage is brought about by the lawfully manifested consent. By the lawfully manifested consent. Matrimonium in fieri. And then canon says, who can give the consent? Only those persons who are legally capable. Very important, legally capable. Who are legally capable? Those persons who do not suffer from the impediments. Those persons who do not suffer from the 12 impediments. And together with that you can also add especially canon 1095, that's also incapacity, but then it is not called an impediment. 1095, incapacity to consent. Here incapacity to marry itself. Incapacity to consent. 1095 also you can take it indirectly. Indirectly. Legally capable. A boy of 10 years old, I want to marry my grandmother. First of all, you should be, for canonically you should be 16. Canonical age for a boy is 16. Though the law itself tells us to follow the civil law, 21. So you are not legally capable. I am 25, I want to marry whom? My friend's wife. No. She is not legally capable. You are capable. She is not legally capable. She is the wife of somebody else. Somebody else. So legally capable. I want to marry. My right is denied. Why did you become a priest? You gave a promise of celibacy. Canonically you are incapable. Disqualified. Disqualified. Civil law may permit you, but in church law you are not capable. So legally, lawfully manifested consent of the persons who are legally capable. Legally capable. Necessary age, no impotency, no prior bond, not affected by perpetual profession or sacred orders, and the other impediments that are mentioned there. You must be legally capable. Legally capable. Then we come to the important canon. What is consent? 1057 para 2. 1057 para 2. What is consent? You have to memorize it, no other go. Matrimonial consent is an act of the will by which a man and a woman, by an irrevocable covenant, once again the word covenant comes into the picture, mutually give and accept, both persons, not one person, mutually give and accept one another for the purpose of establishing marriage. For the purpose of establishing a marriage. 1057, paragraph 2. The definition of matrimonial consent as an act of the will reflects the court's reliance on the rational psychology originated by Aristotle, Christianized by the scholastic theologians, especially Thomas Aquinas. So, why we call consent as an act of the will? From the philosophy of Aristotle and the philosophy and theology of Thomas Aquinas in the Middle Ages. So, according to the traditional system, the human soul consists of two rational faculties, proximate or immediate principles of mental operation. The intellect, whose purpose is to discern the truth, and the will, whose purpose is to discern the truth. The intellect, whose purpose is to pursue the good. So, truth and goodness are discerned both by the intellect and will. So, though here it is said act of the will, it is also first done by the intellect, then by the will. Intellect and will are involved. Knowledge and freedom are involved in giving the consent. I did not know. I am giving to this woman. As soon as you know the truth, you say, no, I will not live with her. Then it was not discerned intellectually. I did not like this woman, then why did you marry? My brother threatened me. There is no will. Consent must be discerned both by the intellect, that's the truth is needed, and both by the will also. That's why the canon says consent is an act of the will by which a man and woman by an irrevocable covenant. So consent cannot be withdrawn. That's why the code uses the word irrevocable. Once given, knowingly and willingly, it cannot be revoked. You remain my wife for 5 years? No. Lifelong. Till death does us apart. Irrevocable consent. Free consent. Deliberate consent. Knowledgeable consent. A consent that is given after evaluation. In our notes, all these elements of consent will be explained. So, consent is an act of the will by an irrevocable covenant. And what happens in the consent? The parties mutually give and accept one another. The parties mutually give and accept one another for the purpose of establishing marriage. For the purpose of establishing marriage. That is consent. With that we will finish for today. We will see.